Welcome back to V8 Creative and part 16 of the Ultima RS build, and on today's episode we're going to be installing the front suspension. Welcome back to the Dean Den, and on this episode we're focusing on the front suspension. So what you're going to see is me fitting the upper and lower wishbones, the beautiful cast uprights with the hubs installed, the steering arms, and also those beautiful coilover shock absorbers. So with Rufus at hand, we're going to start with some unwrapping. Zero again. Unwrapping another box. So let me get Pete the penknife. And see what we have in here. Wow, there's a lot in that box.
Live your life within the moment. And don't go wait until the morning. You never know when it is over. All that I know is we'll get older. So let us dance this night away. Bodies move to the groove and the light that flickers. We get lost in the crowd, it's getting thicker. We get away from the drinks and chatter. Haven't said a word, but it doesn't matter. Feel the air get thinner. Standing in a
The first part of the suspension assembly we're focusing on is the installation of the lower and upper wishbones, and here we are focusing on the front left hand side of the car. Now you'll see in each wishbone there is a tube welded on the end of each of the struts, and in here goes a urethane bush assembly which has three components: two urethane like top hats, 1, 2, and then a stainless steel inner. So the way in which this works is these urethane top hats get pushed in, the stainless steel tube gets pushed in through the middle, and then the whole assembly is clamped by a nut and bolt into basically the chassis. And the suspension rotates, the urethane rotates around this stainless steel inner. Now the way in which we actually insert these is to actually put the urethane in, we can just do it by hand. It's fairly straightforward. So what we have to ensure though is that we clock, what's known as clocking these top hats. If you'll see, there are every 90 degrees a slight indent, and when these get put into the arms they need to be offset so. So the first thing for me to do is push these four into this wishbone. So now they're in place. Now what we have to do now is press the stainless steel inner using our vise into the urethane bushes, and to do that we use this silicone grease, which is provided by Ultima of course, to actually lube the outside of this and the inside of the urethane bush to ensure it goes in smoothly and rotates. What I've done here is I've made up a couple of jaw protectors. I've bought a piece of extruded aluminium from eBay, and the reason I've gone for this size is if you see, it actually, when it's crushed, will push the entire width of the urethane. So we have to open this out, to the width of a bush and a housing. Now I'm going to get all sticky. I don't like this. So we pop some grease on this stainless steel inner, and then pop some grease inside the hole. Yuck. Okay, I should be wearing gloves, but I've run out of them. The other thing is you're going to need loads of toweling because this gets really messy. And there we have it, one bush installed. So now we're going to do the same for the other. There we go. Now you probably saw there that I practiced on one earlier because one of them were fitted, so that's why I've only shown you three, but oh god, I just don't like all this stickiness. Ugh. Right, I'm just going to clean myself up and then we're going to move over to the chassis for the installation. Now what you'll see here on the chassis are these lugs. So there's a pair here, there's a pair here, there's a pair there, pair here, pair here. Now these two are for the pivot points for the lower wishbone, these two for the upper wishbone, and here is the top mount for the shock absorber. Now through all of these go these rather large bolts, and if I take this one for example, it won't go through, and the reason is there's powder coating on the inside of every single one of these holes. So what we have to do is, rather than just wham this through with a hammer, which I've seen people do, we're going to use our lovely little deburring tool. So we'll just pop that in. We'll go round and round. And then it goes through. Let's try the other side. So now we've cleared these holes, the next task is to insert the wishbones, and we're going to start with the bottom wishbone. As you can see, let me just get that out the way. This bottom wishbone goes in these two lugs. Now what we have to do first is apply more grease, of course, to the ends of these wishbones. Is this a project surface that is going to now, sometimes these need just a little bit of encouragement to go in. You can either use the palm of your hand or a fine adjustment tool. There we go. And Okay, so we put a washer in, and again the beveled edge facing outwards, and then the lock nut which you spin on, and then same again on the other side and spin on. So the next stage is to tighten these bolts up, 1/2 inch UNF to the designated torque, because this ain't coming off again. So Ultima provide torque settings in their build manual, and these are set to 47 to 60 Newton meters or 35 to 45 pound-foot of torque. Now I'm going to use my trusty torque wrench, and I'd recommend you invest in one of these. They're not particularly expensive, and I'm going to go slap bang in the middle, and I'm going to go 40 pound-foot of torque. So I'm going to be in the way of the camera, I can tell that. But anyway, I'll give it a go. Now, while I'm looking at the suspension arm here, this is the bottom mount for the shock absorber, and of course it needs clearance for the bolt. So just to demonstrate how the bushes should operate once they're tightened up and fully torqued, if you see here, I've put 2 black marks on the outside of the urethane bush. Now when I put the suspension up and down, you will see those black marks moving, and that is correct. That's what you want to see happen. If you did that and those weren't moving, there would be an issue, because the suspension arm would be rotating on the bush, which is incorrect. It should be the bush rotating on the stainless steel inner. Fine adjustment tool. The next component to put on is the upper ball joint. Now this, as you can see, I've sprayed satin black just to stop it from rusting in the future, and this threaded portion here I've put on a squirt of white grease. So let's just thread this in. Now the position of this is critical, because it determines, if you can imagine the upright being bolted to it, how far the wheel leans out and how far the wheel leans in, basically known as camber. Now we set that up later, but for the time being I'm just going to roughly set this from a picture I saw of an Ultima, and there are about 3 threads showing on the inside, and I'm just going to knit that up like so. That's good enough, because once the upright's on and we've got the hub and the brakes and the wheels and it's on the ground, we'll adjust this accurately to the settings provided by Ultima. And guess what's next? Nitron time. Aren't they beautiful? Aren't they beautiful? So adding these now is so simple. All you do is put them in between these lugs, top and bottom, get a bolt, and simple as that. Okay, got to put a nut on, I know, but, and then the top bolt, like so. And if you notice, the bolts go front to rear. The adjusters of the shock absorber face outwards. It's easy to put them in the other way, but then you can't see them. And just do these finger tight, and then I'm going to torque them up to the settings that Ultima provided. Yeah, I need an electric wrench. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. Whoa. She's looking good now. Okay, so the next part of the assembly is the upright. So here's the upright. Let's just move the steering arm out the way. And this just sits, and we're given a stepped washer. And if you see there, you can see in there, there's a little step, and that little hat falls in it, and then the nut goes on top. Okay, and then the same happens here, and this time the hat, if I don't drop it, goes up into the casting. Now, tightening these up can sometimes be a little bit tricky, because as you're tightening them up, they can spin inside these assemblies, the ball joints. If that happens, what you can do is strap these together with a ratchet strap. I might have to do it, we'll see, to actually compress these into their taper mounts, because the friction of the taper will hold them. There we go. Perfect. Next, what we have to do is bolt on the steering arm onto the rear of the upright, as you can see here. Now, Ultima provide 2 cap head bolts, and there are different lengths, so be careful you don't get them mixed up. The rear one is the shorter bolt, and the front is the longer bolt, as you can see, because this is a thicker moulding. Also, when it's in place, this is dipped and the arm is facing this way, so to speak, if you can see what I mean. So what Ultima also provide are 2 washers, and these are amazing little things. Can you see them there? Now these, if I'm going to pronounce this right, are known as Schnorr washers. Schnorr? They're German anyway. And I'm going to put an insert, a little picture of which way round these should go, because it's important you put them on the right way, because basically they're anti-vibration. In addition, what Ultima suggest is we use Loctite on the bolts as well, to be super safe. So let me put some, not too much. So we've got anti-vibration washers and Loctite on the threads, or thread lock, whatever you want to call it. Those aren't coming off. And again, so in the way, yeah. Okay, let me pull this round like so, and then this track rod end, take the nut and washer off, goes down here. Now again, it's worth getting this length here about correct, because how much thread sticks out here gives you your toe. So we have camber and we have toe. So this, again, I've taken a measurement off of an Ultima, and it was about 17. Now, yeah, I know I'm going to have to change this, but at least it's going to be close. And you have to nip it up to do the geometry, because that taper has to be seated properly. And there we go. Assembly complete. And let me go and see if it steers. I hope so. And here she goes. She's steering. She's steering. Woohoo! So here what we're looking at is the right-hand suspension, which I've assembled, which is basically a mirror image of the passenger side. And what you can see here are red marks on all the fasteners. So what I've done is I've gone through every nut, bolt, set screw, and what I've done is I've checked against the torque that Ultima provide, and if it's correct, what I do is put a mark on it to show that that bolt doesn't have to be touched again. What it also does is I can just glance at this assembly and see if it's come loose. So you can see down here on the bottom ball joint, also on these bolts that hold on the steering arm, and what you can't see is it's around here on the suspension. But I haven't done it on the track rod end here because I'll be taking this off again. And that's about it. Right, I think I need a beer. There we have it, front suspension complete. Those coilovers just look magnificent. And you just wait until I get those brakes installed. This thing is starting to look a serious piece of kit. Anyway, next episode, I'm going to be focusing on the rear of the car, for the uprights, for the suspension, for the toe link. Slightly different process, but we're going to cover that in detail. So lots more spannering. And then on part 18, it's those brakes, those AP racing brakes. So keep tuned in and keep following. And remember, thumbs up if you like it, subscribe if you like it, and always, and I say always, keep on spannering.